So is Israel Adesanya getting more and more delusional, and the entirety of the media becoming more delusional as well in regards to Dricus Du Plessis' original comments about Israel Adesanya? I did make a video pretty much 2 days ago discussing everything that's happened kind of in the past and my own personal take about it, but honestly, I missed a few things. I didn't discuss a few things that I wanted to talk about. And in this video, I'm going to go ahead and dive deeper into this whole narrative that's being misconstrued about Dricus Du Plessis and his original statements about Israel Adesanya. And starting off with, I want to talk about one of the things I kind of missed somewhat a little bit in my last video. I did say at one point that Dricus did not say that he was the real African, and that is true, but Dricus did say that he was the real African champ, which is a key difference. He did not say that he was the real African like how Israel Adesanya and the whole media is spewing it out to be. No, he said that he is the real African champ. So I want to kind of clarify that real quick before I go into anything further, because that was kind of a somewhat of a mistake by me. I just kind of denied it outright that he didn't say he was a real African at all, which he didn't. He said he was the real African champ, but get that more clarified and into the open world now is somewhat of a mistake that I did make. But overall, this is dumb and it's very stupid. What Dricus meant by saying that he was the real African champ was that he's the only fighter that was fighting out of Africa, that lives in Africa, and that trains in Africa. And if he does get the UFC belt, he'll bring it back to Africa, unlike Izzy, who's only born and somewhat raised in Africa. That's the whole deal. It wasn't Du Plessis trying to wage this race war against Adesanya by basically not calling him black or making him seem lesser than because he's somewhat of a European African, is what they would call it. I think in South Africa, they would call Du Plessis a European African. So he's not trying to make Adesanya feel any less than racially. He is trying to poke fun at Adesanya and trying to one-up him by doing something that he couldn't attain, that Adesanya couldn't achieve ever in his life, which is becoming the first champion that actually fights, trains, and lives out of Africa, unlike Adesanya. So he is trying to one-up him, and I do understand that. I can understand why Adesanya would be angry about that. This guy is trying to poke fun at you and push your buttons about your heritage and where you come from. I understand that, but it's not about race. It's not a racial targetization of Adesanya. It's more of a one-upping, and this has been a thing that's been happening throughout the entirety of the UFC. Leon Edwards had the same point about Michael Bisping. Leon Edwards wanted to be the first champion that actually fights out of the UK, that trains out of the UK. Michael Bisping wasn't that guy. Michael Bisping went to America to train and get his belt. Leon Edwards made the same point. Chael Sonnen made the same point about Anderson Silva. He said Anderson Silva moved from Brazil to Las Vegas in his big fat mansion. That was a huge point that Chael had, and there was no uproar about that. So now it's a huge, big deal when the same thing is being said by Dricus Du Plessis. It's been a cultural thing in the UFC for a very long time. Fighters don't like it when a guy claims to be from somewhere, but fights somewhere else and trains somewhere else. That's what Du Plessis is saying by real African champion. That's what he means by that. Not that Adesanya is not African. It's stupid. I mean, think to yourself, why would Du Plessis be openly racist to Adesanya? Why would he do that? It's because it's not about race. The whole issue is not about race at all. It's about, being proud to where you come from. In my live stream, I even said that Du Plessis is trying to start a wave in South Africa. He's trying to create a narrative in South Africa that you can live in Africa, you can train in Africa, and still become a UFC champ, because that is not there right now. Adesanya had to move out of Nigeria to New Zealand to become champion. Kamaru Usman had to move out of Nigeria as well and go over to America to become champion. And Francis Ngannou had to go, I think, to France to become champion. He had to go somewhere else. And then I think to America as well to become champion. So all these guys from Africa didn't become champ by staying in Africa. They had to go somewhere else. And so what Dricus Du Plessis is trying to start in Africa, or in South Africa specifically, is a wave of fighters that have the confidence to stay in Africa, to stay in South Africa, train there, and become champion. He wants to see more South African fighters make their way to the UFC, and that's what he's trying to start by poking fun and making fun of Israel Adesanya. And it's dumb that we're trying to involve race in this when it's never ever been about race. Ariel Helwani pretty much talked about how we should acknowledge the history behind South Africa, that Dricus Du Plessis' history is a rich one there in South Africa, which is dumb. It's dumb. I want you to ask yourself this. Where is Israel Adesanya from? Okay, Nigeria. Pretty easy question, right? Nigeria. Now I'm going to ask you, where is Dricus Du Plessis from? South Africa. Also a pretty easy question. You should get those two pretty easily. So how does the history of South Africa affect Israel Adesanya? And that's a harder question, isn't it? Right? Because it doesn't. The history behind South Africa does not affect Israel Adesanya in any sort of way. Nigeria was unaffected by what happened, or mainly unaffected by what happened in South Africa. It doesn't affect Adesanya, especially nowadays. In the present truth, it does not affect Nigeria at all. That did not exist. So Dricus Du Plessis' history, or the country of South Africa's history, has nothing to do with Israel Adesanya, because he's not from South Africa. And if he was, it'd be a different kind of point. I'd be saying, okay, maybe it's a bit weird that he's saying this because, you know, he's South African and he's trying to say he's not a real South African champ or real African champ. This is kind of a bit weird. Israel Adesanya is from Nigeria. So the history involving South Africa does not even somewhat correlate in any sort of way in this narrative. So talking about it being racist, or that we should talk about the history behind Du Plessis, is dumb. It doesn't matter where Du Plessis is from historically. He's born, raised, lived, and trained in Africa right now. Israel Adesanya doesn't, and that's Du Plessis' whole point. He wants to be the real African champ, an African champ, unlike Adesanya, who you can clarify is a Chinese champ if we're going with that logic. There's a video of him going around on Twitter of Israel Adesanya saying that he has a Chinese heart and that he believes that he's Chinese. He moved to New Zealand at age of 10 and went there, trained, learned how to fight, and became champion. He did most of his work in New Zealand. Most of what Du Plessis has done, most of the work that he's done to get to this point would only be in South Africa. So that's what he means. So I do understand why Israel Adesanya would be upset about this, but this whole racist narrative, this whole historical narrative that we're trying to ride with about Du Plessis being some crazy out of hand racist is dumb. Drop the bullshit, cut the bullshit. That's not what's happening. Let's be honest here. Let's see what we've got. Let's look at the facts and what Du Plessis actually said. He said he wanted to be the first real African champ that actually trains, lives, and breathes African air. That's what he said. He did not say that he was a real African, unlike Adesanya, which is two completely different things. We know what he meant. You know what Du Plessis meant by real African champ. He said it afterwards. A champ that breathes, lives, and trains in Africa. That's what he meant. So stop this whole bullshit narrative that Du Plessis is some sort of racist. It's not true. I'm so tired of hearing it. And Adesanya going there calling him the C word and the N word over and over and over again just proves how immature he is and how his identity crisis, like my last video detailed, how his identity crisis is being put into fruition. It's being put right in front of our faces. I'm gonna say this again. Dricus Du Plessis is not discrediting or threatening Israel Adesanya's African heritage or questioning if he's even African. He's not really doing that. What he's doing is becoming a threat to the identity crisis of Israel Adesanya. He's becoming a threat to Israel Adesanya's ego and his insecurity. That's what Dricus Du Plessis is doing right now. He's not being racist. He's not being prejudiced. He's not being whatever term you want to give it. He's not being any of those. He's just trying to make a fight. It's just that simple. And it's not racially motivated. Let's cut that out. Dricus Du Plessis is not a racially motivated guy. He's just trying to make a fight. He's not backpedaling. He's not playing the victim. He's not. He's sticking by what he said. He said from the very beginning that he wanted to be the first real African champ that breathes, lives, and trains African air. That's what he said from the start. He has not backpedaled one bit. And Adesanya, you on Twitter sitting here trying to call him out and say he's playing the victim just shows to me that you're looking for something to fight about. You want to be angry for a reason. You want to start a racial uprising against Du Plessis because you want the attention, man. So just cut it out. It's just that simple. Just fight Du Plessis. You can have whatever reason you want in your head. It's fine with me. I'm all for this, by the way. I'm excited for this. I think it's dumb we're calling Du Plessis a racist and we're trying to say that he was racially motivated in what he said. I think it's dumb, but overall I think this is great for the hype of the fight. It's going to be a great build up. It's going to be a great press conference. It's going to be great. It's going to be great face-offs and all of that, whatever entails in terms of fight week. That's what I'm super excited for, is all of that. But let's just cut it out with the whole race thing. It's not about race. It's just about geographical location. Let's keep it real here. So I have you guys today. If you guys watch up to this point in the video, I very do much appreciate you. Thank you so much. Whether you liked it or not, thank you. Hit that subscribe button and also hit that bell icon as well for notifications. Israel Adesanya, cut out the race bullshit. I'm out of here. Peace.